Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Sedona International Film Festival. I'm your host, Carol Kahn. We are celebrating our 30th anniversary, and with that comes our sponsors. So we'd like to thank Northern Arizona Healthcare and all the hoteliers, restaurateurs, and all the volunteers who make this film festival as special as it is. And as Patrick Schweiss would always say, it is a filmmakers film festival. So I'd like to introduce to you Mark from the film Downwind. Welcome to Sedona.
Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
It's so good to have you here. So you come all the way from Oregon.
Yeah. It's worth it to come to Sedona.
But your wife we were just talking about it, and your wife is originally from this area.
She spent 10 years here. So yeah, and coming here is it's beautiful, it's amazing, it's powerful. It feels like you're somewhere when you're here. It feels very spiritual, and love being here.
There's definitely an energy. There's some
Yeah.
kind of energy here that, like when I lived in Vegas, I was telling you that I actually lived in Vegas, which we'll talk about in a few minutes. But, the energy that kept bringing me back, I don't know, it was almost like the subliminal calling that I had to keep coming back here. So
I think there are a few places that I've been to in the world, and this is one of them, where you really feel like there's a pull to bring you there, and there's a reason why people are here, and it's a really special place, geographically beautifully, but also the people, just a great setting, great location.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it is. So you brought your film Downwind, which actually is about something that occurred in Las Vegas. So I want you to explain the information that you found out.
So Downwind is a movie that talks about the Nevada test site and the nearly 1,000 nuclear detonations that took place at the test site, which is about an hour from Las Vegas. And there were a total of 928 nuclear weapons detonated of the size of Hiroshima, Nagasaki, and Trinity. And they did this from 1951 to 1952. And a lot of people aren't aware that there were that many detonations. We're all aware of Trinity. We're all aware of what happened in Japan. But I don't know if people are really aware that nearly 1,000 nuclear weapons detonations took place in one location.
And that was open air, not underground.
Well, actually, there were 100. There were atmospheric, or in the mushroom clouds, and 828 were detonated underground. But in both cases, venting occurred or fallout occurred from the detonations, and it impacted communities. We call it downwind because they were downwind of the jet stream, like larger cities like St. George and other cities in Utah, Nevada, Arizona. And as we did our research, we discovered that these detonations, any kind of nuclear accident or detonation, travels the jet stream, and we're all downwinders. So that was sort of the genesis of our film was we couldn't believe that this happened, on American soil. We were surprised by that and wanted to dig deeper.
Now, how did you even come up with the information? How did that all come about?
Well, we started researching a film called The Conqueror, which is a John Wayne film that was shot in St. George. And it's a film where he plays Genghis Khan. John Wayne plays Genghis Khan, and sort of miscast. And it is widely known as one of the worst films ever made, not only for the maybe cultural appropriation of John Wayne playing a Mongol warrior, but also for the cast and crew. Half of the cast and crew eventually died of cancer, which is way above the norm for 100, or the number of people that would be on a shoot. And when we went to St. George and kind of examined the film, we started talking to the people in St. George, and we got in touch with a woman named Claudia Peterson, who is an advocate for downwinders, and she told us her story about her family and the cluster of people in her family and others. And we moved the lens back and sort of figured out that these detonations and the atmospheric detonations and the fallout impacted everyone downwind. And so again, that was our conclusion. We had zeroed in on this one movie, but then as we pull back, we're like, no, wait a minute, we're all downwinders.
Mm-hmm. And you have a piece of information, a little booklet. So where did you come in contact with that booklet?
In our film, we talked to a reporter named Keith Rogers for the Registered Journal in Las Vegas, a newspaper, and he handed me this detonations booklet, which is the United States nuclear tests, and it talks about every nuclear test from 1945 to 1992, and in the booklet, in the little notes comments section, it tells how big the detonations were. Sometimes they were 10 times the size of Hiroshima. Sometimes they were smaller. and sometimes much higher. Like in one test, 65 times the strength of the Hiroshima bomb, if you can imagine that. It was an underground detonation. And in the liner notes, it'll say things like accidental release of radiation detected off-site. Accidental release of radiation detected off-site, which we found sort of unforgivable. That this is sort of not more breaking news than it is. I don't think people really were aware that the government, which created this document, admitted to it, and so it became sort of a guideline for our book, and I mean for our movie, and following the not just the number of detonations, but just the power that they had, and then the recognition that the government knew that there were issues with fallout and potential clusters of people that would get cancer from those tests.
Now we have a clip of the film, so let's take a look at that, and we'll talk some more when
Okay.
we're done seeing that.
Thanks.
I really cannot forgive our leaders, our politicians, for not addressing this. This has been a terrible pox on humanity.
No one ever warned us about the testing and what it will cause.
My family personally have died of cancer and other illnesses known to be plausible from exposure to radiation.
The headlines are coming in, "Did America kill John Wayne?"
Where you watch the guy standing there with those glasses and going, really, so this is really gonna work? At the age of 7, 8, 9, you're not stupid.
Even all these years later, Stephen Clark.
From 1951 to 1992, the United States detonated 928 nuclear weapons in Nevada.
That's why we need a safe place for my people.
We own that flag too. We own that flag too.
I am a patriot and an activist. I don't sit on my butt.
So in a very real sense, your work can and will bring us closer to a world free of nuclear weapons.
Wow. So how did you get Michael Douglas and Martin Sheen to be part of this documentary?
When we made the film, we really wanted to get the most noteworthy people in sort of the community that spoke out against nuclear weapons testing, and both Martin Sheen and Michael Douglas were big advocates, for us to stop the testing, and that was our wish list. Not only did we want downwinders in the community who were outspoken folks like Claudia that I mentioned, and Mary Dixon and Ian Zabarte from our film, we wanted to go to Hollywood because we felt like it was important that people understand that it really impacted everyone and we're all human. And we reached out and got a hold of them, and they were really amazing with their time and continue to be, and supportive of our cause, and gave their time, which was incredible. I think in some ways, some of the interviews we did were during the pandemic, and so shooting was down for a lot of production, so we were able to, in one case with Michael Douglas, in one of our interviews, he said, "Hey, on Thursday, can you make it down to Santa Barbara for an interview?" We said, "Yep, well, in 2 days we'll make it happen." And that happened. Martin Sheen was amazing, and in particular, Martin Sheen, who'd been arrested at the test site on numerous occasions and had worked and known Ian from protests at the test site. So we aimed high, and we were, we worked hard to get the right people in front of the camera.
Yeah, well, obviously you did, and it worked. Interesting because it was from 1952, did you say, to when was that?
1951 to 1992
92.
in Nevada.
Right. So looking at that, looking at that time span and looking at the time span from 1992 to now, do people still need to be fearful of or after effects of that nuclear testing even now?
Well, we talked to a doctor in the film who talked about the generational impact on DNA and, the destruction of DNA, which is generational. It can be passed down through generations. Claudia, who I mentioned, unfortunately passed cancer to her younger daughter, that their doctor said was from Downwind. So it's a topic that needs to be addressed, continues to be addressed. And the most timely thing right now that's going on is an act called the Radiation Exposure Compensation Act, which is called RECA, and it's for downwinders, and it provides funding for downwinders for cancer treatments and ailments that can be attributed to any of the testing. You have to qualify for RECA, and you can go to RECA. You can go online and find out. You can Google RECA or Radiation Exposure Compensation Act, downwinders.com. There's a lot of websites you can go to that talk about whether or not you're qualified to submit an application for RECA, but it should be noted that there are only 3 states that qualify. Arizona is one of them. Utah and Nevada are the other 2, and it's only remote counties of those states. So even though northern Arizona is covered by RECA, not all counties are covered. And as a matter of fact, the people in our film, none of the people that we interviewed, even though they are downwinders, qualify for RECA. So RECA is now in the danger of actually expiring in June of this year. So it was actually part of the NDAA, the Defense Act that Mitch McConnell and Mike Johnson took out of the act. And so we're not sure if actually RECA will continue. It was an act that was passed in 1990, and it's scheduled to sunset, as I mentioned, in June of this year.
Interesting, because when you start ruffling feathers, whether it's government and trying to find out information and have information like this, have you been contacted by anybody in the government to say, no, do not talk about this or anything like that?
No, because we're only telling things that are, unclassified, things that are out there. And, we're just telling a truth, and, we stand behind the truth with fact, and, we show the fact in the film, and we actually talked to a couple different sides. In the movie, we talked to somebody who was representative of the test site, and so everything that we're doing now is factual. So far so good. Knock on wood.
Yeah, really. And so Ian, is he the Native American?
Yes.
Okay, so interesting. I think he said something in the film about like how water is affected, or their water is affected. I guess nobody really understands that regardless if you detonate something underground or like above the ground, that water in somehow is affected, and
Right.
water is everything that makes us live.
Yes.
And also the Native Americans find water very sacred. So what is his, like, I know he's really upset because basically, it's like on their land. So what is your take on all of that?
Well, the Nevada test site itself is a 1,300 square mile piece of land, and it's all Shoshone Nation land. It's the size of Rhode Island. If you can believe that, this swath of desert in the size of Rhode Island, that is deeded Shoshone land based on a treaty that the Shoshones signed with the U.S. government, way back in the day. And my take is that they want their land back, but I also think they want recognition. And the RECA's part of it, but a lot of people were impacted, as you mentioned, water. When it gets into water, it gets into plants, it gets into the animals that are grazing, any sort of wild animal or the plants, trees. Ian talks to me a lot about when they butcher a rabbit, for instance, they eat the whole thing, and they found radiation in the thyroid glands of rabbits. So it's been passed down. So I think my take is that this needs to get out there. Everybody in this room has seen Oppenheimer. Everybody watching has seen
Yes.
Oppenheimer, and I'm pausing because there's a moment in that film where everybody's worried that maybe the world will end when they detonate that one nuclear detonation, that bomb. And I think people need to come to terms with the fact that we detonated nearly 1,000 of these bombs. We need to understand that people need to be compensated for their suffering, the cancers and things like that happen to them. The Radiation Exposure Compensation Act has to be expanded, and again, it's in danger of just falling off the map, so people won't have access to it. A lot of the people that lived in Ian's group and his community weren't aware of the testing. They're not aware of RECA. And, we do what we can to kind of get the word out. This is part of what we're doing. But there's language barriers. There's barriers when you fill out a report, when you fill out the RECA form, it's difficult. Even when you buy a house, the number of forms you have to sign, it's like that. And for a lot of people that are, English is not their native language, or they didn't know about the testing, a film like this can help get the word out that we represent the people in the wake of Oppenheimer. And, Oppenheimer's on Peacock now, and our film just went to Peacock also. So my hope is that people will watch the film. I mean, there's nothing like seeing it on the big screen in Sedona and being able to do a Q&A, an interactive Q&A. But if you can't, I would urge people to tell their friends about Downwind. If you watch Oppenheimer, let's talk about the people in the wake of Oppenheimer, in the wake of science, which is a two-edged, double-edged sword, right? Science has done amazing things, but it also can be very destructive.
Right.
So I think there's that recognition of those things that help bring it all together in our film.
Yeah, well, thank you for presenting that to us. One of the things that you had mentioned is that, there's, money that's people are being taken care of, but in my mind and eyes, there's no money in the world that's going to take care of generational things that have happened to people's DNAs that now affect them, whether it's the plants, the water, the animals. It continues, which is really like the domino effect.
Yes.
So it's really unfortunate, but with documentaries like this, I applaud you for bringing that to everybody. So thank you for doing that. And how could people find out about your film?
Well, you can go to Peacock and watch it.
Okay.
You can go to backlotdocs.com. That's our website. I love it when people go on our Instagram, which is @downwind_film. I think the last thing, hopefully I can say, is the people in our film, they don't see themselves as victims. They see themselves as inspiring change. And that's sort of what we're hoping to do with our film. And we'd love the support. We'd love the follow on our Instagram, and on our website we'll tell where it'll be available next.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Mark, for bringing it. And then your film is being shown where?
It's for the next, actually 2 more screenings. We had one last night. We have one today at 4:00, and then on Wednesday at 10 a.m.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you.
Thank you
you
very
so much
much.
for being with us and being here in Sedona.
Thank you.
And you have to bring your wife and daughter back.
For sure. Love to. Thank you.
And we'll be back with more interviews from filmmakers in just a few minutes. But first, don't forget to check us out on Facebook Live and follow us #SIFFSIF30. And we'll be back with more interviews from filmmakers and fun soon.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.